Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to another video. I am Julia and this is Julia's Speed Builds. Today we are building a modern garden cafe. This is part of a series I'm trying to start. There should be a video already up on my channel talking about it a little bit more, but we are rebuilding Willow Creek, which if you don't know is the main kind of neighborhood where most of the Sims live when you start a base game playthrough. So I have deleted all of those lots out of that neighborhood and am rebuilding everything. Not from memory or anything. We're making entirely original builds. I say original, but I use a lot of reference photos, so they are not EA builds. We're not trying to like rebuild the Pancakes house or the Goth's house or anything. We're just creating our own save file, our own neighborhood to start games within. So we're starting out with a cafe. And I also apologize. I just thought I was recording this voiceover. Did the entire 20 minutes of talking through this and realized I had not actually pressed the record button. So I'm sorry if I repeat anything because I don't really know what I've said at this point. But yes, let's just jump into it. So obviously this is a modern build. We're using blacks and whites and both deeper and lighter tone browns. I've said it before in a video. I'll say it again because it is my truth. I really like using dark brown and black together in architecture and decorating. It's a fashion faux pas, and I get that. I don't think I'd wear black and brown at the same time, but I think in decorating it looks really cool and modern. So we're doing that today. But yeah, I didn't really go in with much of a plan with this build. I knew I wanted it to be a modern garden cafe. I knew that was going to be my title or my description of this house, but I didn't really know how that would translate to real life, so we do kind of jump around a little bit. Things are ever changing. Right now we've got 3 whole roof pieces, but we will eventually create a little rooftop seating area. So yeah, just hang in there. I'm sorry if it jumps around and gets a little dizzy for you, but we did our best. We're also about to raise the wall height, but the style of the build does not change from here out. It is modern, it is bright, it is airy. I tried to use the biggest, most open windows that I could, and yeah, here we are adding the seating area to the roof section here, and we raised the wall height just because it felt more open that way, and it gave it a little bit more curb appeal with the, because I know sometimes when you put awnings on the front of your builds, it can make the still that the gallery produces for you kind of hide the doorway, and I really love the entrances on my build, so I try to make sure you can see those, even if that means making a porch smaller so that you can see past that little awning roof piece. So in this case, because we built an awning with garden pieces over it on the porch on the front deck, I guess, I raised the wall height so you could still see under that, because honestly the front of this build was probably one of my most favorite parts about the build itself. I really liked how inviting the front door ends up looking, especially with this being a community lot. I wanted it to be a little bit trendier of a place. So yeah, so if you don't know, the way we have done this little awning here is with fence pieces. This is something I think is really interesting and creative that I see a lot of builders do. You can turn the grid on and off with the G button in build mode, and if you turn the grid on and go up 1 floor level, you can use the fence builder, the one where you're placing down fence instead of turning walls into fences. You can kind of create this cross-hatched awning look, and then you can go into the plant menu and find pieces of grass or just bushes in general. There's a bunch of flat flower pieces, and if you press the parentheses keys or the 9 button, they should be the same on your computer. If you press those enough times, you can raise up the grass pieces to be fitting within those little squares. Sorry, I'm about to hiccup, you guys. I haven't hiccuped in forever. But anyways, if you raise up those pieces, they can fit within those little squares, and then it looks like there's a little garden awning. So obviously we incorporated that into this build because it is a garden cafe. And I loved the idea of it being a garden theme for a cafe, because I know like all coffee shops everywhere have their own theming. Even like Starbucks has its own theming, and I guess it would just be like modern barista would be their theme. But there's a lot of little coffee shops in my little college town that are like on the road themed, or just like internet cafe themed, or like Parisian themed. So I liked the idea of this being garden themed, a little bit more naturalistic, a little oasis for you to sit and study in if you're needing a breath of fresh air while you are doing your busy work. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in the debug menu for this. And I realized that there's actually a lot more like plant pieces than I thought there were. I know originally the first bundle I ever purchased included the vampire game pack, because I knew they had little pieces of like vines that you could place, and I utilized those in this build too. But they had vines that you could place on the walls, and I knew that I loved that aesthetic, and I knew that that added so much like atmosphere to builds that I really liked, and I wanted to be able to use them too. But honestly, there are so many items in the debug menu that could help you achieve that look as well. For instance, these little hanging plants that we're putting on our cross-hatched awning, those are base game debug items, as well as these little hanging plants we're about to put everywhere. Those are base game debug items. There's also little pieces of, on the side of the building there where we have those little, the windows with the bars going across them. The plant, the darker green plant I put in front of there, that is a base game debug item. So if you did want that like aesthetic of plants climbing up your walls, you can totally achieve that with cheats. I believe specifically instead of the show hidden objects cheat, it was show live edit objects, which are just pieces of like atmosphere building items that EA uses on not so much of the community lots, but the in-between spaces of lots. So like the trees that you see as you're walking down the sidewalk, if your Sim's gonna go fishing or something, all the trees like on those pieces of lots that you can't edit, those are the pieces in the live edit menu. So we use those. Also, one of the things I was trying to accomplish with this build was to make it look really integral to the lot it was on. So I did a lot of looking at what community lots that EA builds looks like, because as much as people like poop on EA for not building the greatest houses and they're kind of empty and maybe they look kind of weird, they do build great community lots. In terms of like parks and things, and so I wanted to figure out how they make them look so natural in those spaces, and a lot of it is actually hiding the borders of the lot, and they do that with the sidewalk tiles. So anywhere that I thought that the grass kind of extended too far, I would put the sidewalk tiles so that the lot size looked as if it was a little more personalized to the actual building on the lot. And I think that helped a lot, because we are trying to build a neighborhood here. This is supposed to be the neighborhood cafe, so I didn't want it to just look like a lot and a lot and a lot, all kind of like not intertwined together. So that'll probably be a theme and like a technique I use throughout the next couple builds I do, of kind of extending the width of the sidewalks around the lot so that the building looks like it's an actual part of the build itself, or the world itself, I should say. But yeah, we're building the inside at this point. We are decorating the inside, placing down the furniture. I put a bar on that entire side of the wall because I specifically like sitting at bars or counters, I guess, when I go to coffee shops. I think it's the best way as like a singular person, an individual. I think it's the best place to like kind of spread out but still not be taking up a lot of space. I think if you sit at a table with like 3 or 4 chairs and you're just one person with like your laptop and your bag, like, are you hogging the space? Probably. So I wanted to include a counter space there. And ultimately too, I add some computers for Sims to use, because it is a community lot. Your Sims are going to be coming here for different purposes. One of those is probably going to be to drink coffee and get food, obviously, but one of the purposes of a cafe is normally the free Wi-Fi. And apparently your Sims can bring, like, you can drag your laptop to your inventory and then bring it to this lot to, like, use it here. And one of the traits is fast Wi-Fi. One of the lot traits is. But I put some computers down too so that there'd be more Sims hanging out doing stuff in here. Yeah, this bathroom, we built these stalls with half walls. I tried to use the stalls from Discover University at first, but they were really big and bulky, and this was a little bit more minimalistic of a space, so we used these half walls, which is going to make it kind of difficult for you to see your Sims if they get lost in the bathroom. Because half walls don't disappear when you change your wall viewing settings. But it shouldn't be too big of a problem. And also with these tables and chairs in here, I don't even think this is the final configuration of them. I keep moving them around, and I encourage you to move them around too if you place this lot in your world. I think chairs and tables placement changes all the time in actual coffee shops because people are dragging tables and chairs closer to each other if they have a bigger group of people. So yeah, this will not be their last configuration. We're decorating a little bit now. It was kind of hard to pick out things to clutter up this space with because it's supposed to be more of a minimalistic space because it is modern and it is garden themed, so I wanted a little bit more natural style of things, and then also like black, white, and brown are our color tones. But I was trying to think of like what you'd actually find in a cafe because the space was feeling empty, so I knew I needed to clutter it up. So one of the things we found were these bird posters. I think they're a collectible item that comes with cats and dogs, and I found them in the debug menu as a feather. And then when I dragged them and realized it was a poster or a plaque, I was like, okay, here we go. Because I thought birds really fit into the whole garden vibe really well because birds make their nests in bushes, and there's a bunch of those obviously climbing up the walls of this building. It would make sense if there was a bunch of birds around, so I utilized those a lot. I also have those big lights on the wall, which I do actually think does a disservice to the lighting on the lot. I will not be offended if you delete those lights off of the walls, because with how big the windows are, the light really floods in really well. I have my settings at the highest, which my computer is definitely not happy about all the time. But the game honestly does a really good job with sunlight coming in. And I think the light coming from those wall lights kind of like counteracts that and doesn't let it look as pretty as it could. But yeah, we're still cluttering up the space. I put a plant at each table and colored it red. I decided that was going to be our accent color when we changed the color swatch on the espresso machine on the counter. And I was just trying to kind of add it in little tidbits around the space. I thought a plant on each table was a good way to kind of add texture and atmosphere to the space without making it look too cluttered. I added those plants to the wall, but those get deleted later. Even that bulletin board on the wall gets deleted later and replaced. I thought it was important to have a bulletin board on a wall in a cafe because I think that's something, regardless of the theme in the coffee shop you're going into, there's always a little bulletin board or cork board at the door with like flyers of current events or just business cards or promotions of things. There's always something like that at coffee shops. So yeah, we've used some tables from cats and dogs at this point to put in the seating areas. I think this facade, like the facade, the front of the house, is my favorite part. I really loved those big tables at the entrance. That was one of the only things I knew from the beginning that I wanted was big community tables at the entrance of this cafe for your Sims to sit at, because I would want to sit at that table if I went to a cafe. We're adding some a little bit smaller tables to the back of the build, adding the same chairs though, because I did the furniture and like accessories. Should I say accessories, or is it just like little decorations? I guess decorations. Accessories are for people. The decorations are a little bit different from seating area to seating area. So like Inside, we've got like the darker woods with the black chairs, but like outside, we've got the wicker chairs, but still like dark tables. And like some tables are rounded and some tables are squared off. And so just trying to make each space feel a little bit different and have a little bit of a different allure as to why you would choose to sit there if you were actually eating at this cafe. Eventually, we will decorate the upstairs as well, and each table will get a little candle in case you're there in the evening. I loved this little side door too because I thought it just looked so like picturesque and serene. With all the plants around it and it being a side door, it was a little bit more like secret garden kind of an aesthetic. There is a picture of that in the walkthrough at the end that I hope you enjoy. But yeah, so we were kind of back and forth all over the place while decorating this thing because I was scrolling so much through the debug menu. And when you find an item in the debug menu, you do kind of have to place it down immediately because it's really hard to find it again once you've scrolled past it, and I'm not the kind of person who can just place down a bunch of stuff I think I'm gonna want on the lot, because I think the continuity for these speed builds, it irks me to just have like things all over the place that just disappear randomly, because when I watch speed builds, it's so that I can like pick up new tips and tricks of what other people are doing, and placing and what their styles are and what their thinking processes are. And so, like, if I'm watching a piece of furniture move because I want to know how they utilize it and all of a sudden it just disappears, I'm going to be really confused. So I try not to do that for you guys. But yeah, we're adding some vines to the inside. I think this little back menu portion of the cafe was like my second favorite part of this place, especially once we added the little coffee cup neon sign in there. I thought it was really cute, and we lit it up with the little spotlights, and I really enjoyed it. We added another serving area to the top, and I've played in this building to play test it as well as take the walkthrough pictures, but there was no sim that like manned these upstairs like bars. Because I did add a coffee bar as well as a bar because I know that some coffee shops turn into like wine tasting places at night. I know even Starbucks serves wine at some locations at night, but I love this little upstairs place. I think if you played a sim up here for a little bit longer, maybe there would be a community sim that would come and tend these bars, but I'm not entirely sure. Let me know if you find out, and I will keep playing with it as well because it is in my world that I'm building. So yeah, and then ultimately we will add a sink to this bar. But I hope y'all like this build. Let me know what you want to see out of some of the house slots and community lots in this new series. I will be building the community ones first, and then obviously I'll have a lot of houses to build. So if there's anything specific that you want to see, let me know. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and you can find this lot in the gallery. It's already up there as simply Modern Garden Cafe. And yeah, we are placing down the computers now, which is our final touch. So thank you guys for being here. I will see you next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!